Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today we're going to talk about how much bagged product, soil, potting mix, container mix, whatever you want to buy, how much do you need to fill your containers, your raised beds. Please check out the video description. I'm going to link some videos to show you how to make your own potting mixes, container mixes, garden soil, etc. Save yourself a lot of money. But today's all about figuring out how much you need for containers. We're going to do some simple math. It's real easy. I'll put the equations in the video description. I'll put them on the screen. So we're going to do width times length times height. That's going to give us cubic feet. Just real quick, for example, if you have a house or an apartment, most of us have one, and you have a room that's 10 feet by 10 feet. 10 times 10 is 100. You get 100 square feet, but that is flat. That is just for, the carpet or the wood flooring, etc. We're talking about depth, so you can see that there's a side on the raised bed right over there. So it's always height times width times length, or width times length times height. You need three numbers. Let's walk over here first, and again, I'll do some close-up examples of containers and raised beds. So we're talking about volume, so you have to incorporate the height of the containers that you're doing. So for instance, if you had a room in your house that was 8 feet by 4 feet, like a lot of raised beds, that would be 32 square feet. You need 32 square feet of carpet. If you want to look at one of my beds in here and it's 4 feet by 8 feet, you're going to need 32 cubic feet of material, because that includes really a 1 foot side. Why is that important? Because not all your raised beds are going to necessarily be a 1 foot side. Like that one's probably only 4 inches over there. Some of my sides of my beds are 6 inches. Some of them are 32 inches. So you're just going to measure length and width. That's pretty easy. Sometimes measuring the height of the sides can be a little bit confusing, but that's what's going to give you the cubic feet, the total cubic feet for your containers and for your raised beds. All right, time for examples. Let's pretend that we just built this strawberry box, 2 feet wide, 6 feet long. 6 times 2 is 12 feet. That's 12 square feet when you're just talking about the surface. And again, that's perfect for carpeting, tile, wood flooring, etc. When you're doing volume, or the cubic feet, you have to include the height. So every time you do an equation, really 1 foot is included, because when you talk about cubic feet, you're going height, length, and width. So it makes a perfect cube. So 6 times 2 is 12 square feet. It's also 12 cubic feet because you're including the 1 foot measure. Now this is really important because you're always going to use 3 numbers. You're going to do width, length, and height. The general height that's always included is a number 1 for 1 foot, so that's 12 inches. This is about 9 inches tall. So how do you convert it? So 1 equals 12 inches, 0.5 in your equation equals 6 inches, and 0.75 equals 9 inches. So for me to figure out how many cubic feet of material I need to fill this, I would do 2 feet by 6 feet. This is about 9 inches, so I would do 0.75. And that's going to give me what I need to fill this. Can't do it in my head. I'll throw it up on the screen. And that's how you know how much material to buy. So let's take a look at my raised bed that's 4 feet by 8 feet. And let's pretend it's not filled. The sides are 6 inches, not 12 inches. So if you, again, 4 times 8 is 32. That's just the square footage. Now we have to include the depth. The depth, or the height, is 6 inches. That's 1/2 of 1, so it's 0.5. So it's 4 feet by 8 feet times 0.5, which ends up being 16 cubic feet. And that's the amount of material I would need to fill this. If these were 12-inch sides, it'd be 4 times 8 times 1. you would need 32 square feet. 0.5 is half of 1, so instead of 32, we need 16 cubic feet of material. This metal raised bed is about 2 feet by 3.5 feet, so it's going to be 2 times 3.5, and the sides are actually about 12 inches. So it'd be 2 times 3.5 times 1. That will give you the volume. Check out the screen for the total number. Now, these are perfect rectangles or squares and stuff like that. They're easy to measure because you just measure from here to here. Again, we're just doing estimates. This is more of an oval shape. There's no corners. How you measure this is you just measure from here down to there. That will give you the length, which is 3.5 feet. And then you measure from the center to the other side, which is 2.5 feet. Yes, you're going to have spaces you're not filling because we're just measuring this as if it is a rectangle. So you're going to have a little bit extra material, but it's a lot easier to figure out how many, cubic feet do you need to fill a container when you just treat it as a square or a rectangle. If you're doing circles, it's just like the oval. You go right down the center. That's about 3 feet, and then you just double it. So it's 3 feet times 3 feet. This is 9 feet. Now, again, you're going to have extra material because it's not a square, and you're basically, you use two measures because you're making a cross. You're coming straight down this way, 3 feet, and then you're measuring across this way, 3 feet. So you got your height and your width. And then you go ahead and measure the sides. That's about 6 inches. So it would be 3 feet times 3 feet, 3 times 3 times 0.5, and that will let you know how much material you need to fill this container / raised bed. When we go to containers, they're usually circles, so this is how you measure to fill a container. In container gardening, the containers are usually measured by gallons, so we will put I will put the conversion up on the screen and in the video description. And remember, we're just trying to get an estimate. We don't need to be exact. Like this clay pot, tapers at the bottom. A lot of containers sometimes go straight down. We're just going to be measuring the top. And I know this pot is 12 inches by 12 inches, and the sides are not quite 12, but we're going to keep it simple. So it's 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, 1 cubic foot will fill this. Now, your materials are going to come in cubic feet or quarts. I know it gets confusing. If we knew that this was a 7-gallon container, we can convert. So 1 cubic foot is equal to about 7.5 gallons. So, if you know this pot is 7 gallons, you just got to go buy 1 cubic foot of material. Now, maybe you want to put potting mix in this. Potting mix is usually measured in quarts, not cubic feet. So we know that we need 7 gallons for this. There are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. So if this is 7 gallons, we times it by 4, we need 28 quarts to fill this. Hopefully that makes sense. Just depends on how you're buying it. But just to kind of recap, 1 cubic foot of material is equal to 7.5 gallons. That will help you fill your containers. And then a lot of times potting mix or container mixes are measured in dry quarts. So there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. This is a fabric pot. I sell these at my seed shop. It's a 20-gallon fabric pot. We know that 7.5 gallons is about what's in 1 cubic foot of material. So we're going to need 20 gallons. We're going to need at least 3 cubic feet. Now, if you wanted to measure, maybe you don't know this is a 20-gallon container, which I do recommend. You can grow 2 or 3 pepper plants in here, a indeterminate tomato. You measure it the same way as we're doing the circles. That's 19 inches. We're just going to round that down to 18 inches, which is 1.5 feet. And then we would go this way, 1.5. And then we would measure this way, 12 inches. So we do 1.5 times 1.5 times 1. That would give us the cubic foot measure. and that's a good estimate for how much material would need to go into here if we didn't know this was a 20-gallon container. Now this is an estimation. Suppose you don't have a raised bed, you don't have containers, but you can see that I have mounds here, and maybe you want to create, you know, a mound with a peak that's maybe 6 inches, you know, in the center, and you measure out your space. It's about 4 feet by 10 feet, 6 inches high. That's how you would think about getting enough material to build a mound that kind of peaks, you know, right in the center at 6 inches or 4 inches or something like that. So you just use general estimations. So you really are kind of visually saying, well, this is going to be about 6 inches tall in height. It's about 3 feet wide, you know, this little space here, and maybe 6 feet long. And that will give you a sense of how much material you need to kind of build up a mound if you're going to grow in mounded earth beds. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 750,000 subscribers. Every person helps, so I appreciate it. And remember, when we're doing containers, they're round, and we're treating them as if they are squares, so we're overbuying a little bit. So you could subtract from your total a bit, knowing that you're filling a circle instead of a square. Measuring a square is a little bit easier, and it's just the easiest way to do it. Again, thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And again, please subscribe. It really makes a difference. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck in your garden.